Show starts in 1 minute.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Did you know that June 1st is National Dinosaur Day?
I did not. No. So we passed it already. We passed it.
I know, but how kismet is that?
It is.
Yeah. I'm like, look at this. We look like we're right on the cusp of things.
It's been 300 plus episodes. We have never, ever given the original Jurassic Park its due. And that is going to change today. Plus, we haven't done a 5 bucket in who knows how long. I think Black Stallion.
Black Stallion was the last one.
And I cannot think of a movie better deserving for that 5 bucket status than Jurassic Park. But again, sadness that we're finally doing this, and that means it'll be in our rear view from this point on.
All right. Well, we're going to relish this because I'm going to tell you right now, I may have done a little over preparing. And I had to rewatch it, obviously. We're going to have to actually induct your computer into the Jurassic Park. It sounds like it's extinct.
I know. Yeah. Hopefully you don't hear the difference, but I've got a temporary solution going today. So
yeah, we're recording on a Fisher Price laptop right now.
just so we can continue to bring quality entertainment to you.
This episode was 65 million years in the making.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So yeah, Jurassic Park. Wow. 93. That's ridiculous that's 30 years ago.
It is. And 93 was such a highlight year for me. So much good stuff was happening that year. Jurassic Park is probably on the head and shoulders of everything. I think this episode is going to really speak to our personal experiences, maybe just as much as, talking about the movie itself. This is going to be a cliche, but this is really, when you say the words game changer, I don't think that anything fits that more aptly than Jurassic Park.
I agree with you.
Nothing was the same after this in terms of movie making.
This was, you could say, just like Star Wars kind of revolutionized and brought, that kind of genre in. This movie just blew the doors off that. I remember a lot of the promos leading up to it. But yeah, I remember specifically sitting in the theater, watching this unfold and being blown away.
I was in disbelief of what I was seeing in the theater.
It's gonna be what?
Now, you mentioned it was National Dinosaur Day on June 1st, right?
June 1st, yes.
I'm really sad that I let that go by because as a kid, I was a huge dinosaur fan.
I think we all are. I think every 8-year-old boy at some point in their life is absolutely obsessed with dinosaurs.
As a little kid, you fall into like either the sports category or the dinosaur category.
Yeah, right.
Really.
Yeah.
And those two don't often intertwine, but
not on the playground.
Yeah, no.
Am I T-Rex riding your 4x4?
But yeah, as a kid in the 70s, you had these rudimentary, they're considered that now, these, the books and education on dinosaurs, and you see them and they're the old school, like T-Rex standing straight up.
Not only that, was like, we were told that brontosauruses were so heavy they couldn't support their own weight and had to live in swamps.
Mm. Well, that's mentioned. That there's a line about that in this movie.
Yeah.
So for a dinosaur kid watching Jurassic Park, somebody who knew all the names of these things, missing the dinosaurs that you were expecting to see, but didn't actually make it into Jurassic Park.
Well, there was a budget because
unbelievably, because it was Spielberg.
Listen,
he has budgets too.
I will tell you right now, we're going to get into it on the back end, but the special effects and the way that they pulled this off is amazing. And there's a lot going on here. It's not, it's not claymation, little King Kong from 1933. That's for sure.
Although it could have been.
That's exactly where they started. Yeah. How else would you do this? Dinosaurs. I mean, even in the 30 plus years since this movie came out, there's huge leaps and bounds in what we now know. And I can ruin this entire movie for you at the back end by showing you or telling you all the inconsistencies and inaccuracies scientifically that exist.
I don't think it would matter, though. I don't think that would
it doesn't. No, because it is what it is. But yeah, it's amazing. Because again, as a kid growing up in the 70s, we were shown Iguanodon, which they didn't even know was cobbled together from different dinosaurs, the brontosaurus that doesn't even really exist anymore, the apatosaur. But yeah, again, after this movie came out, this movie, I'm sure created a whole new generation of paleontologists who became obsessed with this. I mean, imagine if we saw, we're watching Valley of Guani or all these other stop motion movies back in the 50s, and we're like, whoa, this is cool. But as a little kid watching this movie and just being like, all right, these things are real and I want to learn about them.
Yeah. I remember having in the 70s a giant bag of little plastic dinosaurs.
Yeah, of course. If you were lucky, they actually had their little names stamped underneath them.
If you were lucky.
Ankylosaurus or an ankylosaurus or however you want to pronounce it.
I used to call it Ankylosaurus.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. You were close enough.
Yeah.
I do find it funny, though, that for a movie called Jurassic Park, pretty much all these dinosaurs existed in the Triassic or the Cretaceous. They didn't really mingle with each other. But I guess that's the whole point of the...
Would Cretaceous Park really, ring?
Well, that's just it. So, yeah. Right. So, right, the whole thing exists as the Mesozoic era, which encompasses the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. And I think Michael Crichton just basically said, well, Jurassic Park had the nicest rolled off the tongue than anything else. We have to mention Crichton.
We have to bring it all back to Crichton because this was his novel that was released in 1990. And myself working at a bookstore at that time knew how big this was. I remember the display at the front of the store with a mountain of Jurassic Park hardcovers.
Well, by then, because he already knew that it was being made into a movie.
The rights were purchased before the book was even released.
Yeah, because Spielberg was working with Crichton on a theatrical version of ER, Emergency Room. Mm-hmm. And he just happens to bring up, hey, what are you working on next? And he's like, DNA and dinosaurs. Boom. I want in. So from what I understand, Crichton actually verbally gave Spielberg the rights if he was going to produce and direct it. Studios like, this is a brilliant idea. And they started a bidding war for the rights to this. And this I find fascinating, which is there was 3 studios as well as Universal that were bidding for this. And every one of these studios had a director attached. So 20th Century Fox had Joe Dante in their back pocket. Warner Brothers, Tim Burton, and TriStar had Richard Donner, and obviously Universal had Spielberg. Deeper Pockets could have made this a completely different movie. Imagine this in the hands of Tim Burton. You would have gone claymation.
You would have. Yes. I cannot even fathom that. No.
Yeah. So I find that fascinating, but no, they paid $2 million for the rights to his novel before it was even published.
And if you look at how much this thing made, that's a deal right there.
Well, I mean, it was a long way to go to get there.
It was, but...
And Spielberg laughed all the way to the bank because I think he ended up making $250 million on this. That's a huge chunk of change.
But well-deserved. This guy changed cinema history.
Can you give him all the credit, though?
I don't, but,
yes.
You're only as good as the people that work under you. But
that's true. That is
had
true.
to gather this team, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well,
his vision that was driving this.
Some of them kind of sabotaged him, though, because he had certain ideas and they're like, I think we can do this better. And secretly,
but he listened. He was not.
Listen, you throw that in your face and all of a sudden you're like,
But
Okay,
he
I
already
think you're
had
right.
Phil Tippett, right? And he had to break his heart, but kept
Yes,
him
well,
on.
he kept it. All right, so we'll get into that. But so
Yeah.
go back to Crichton for a minute because you don't realize like just how big of a name this guy was. Well, Westworld, which is
Yeah.
basically this movie,
With robots
but with
instead of
robots, cowboys. Um, but this guy was a novelist. He was an adventurer. He was a doctor, and he was a screenwriter. And at one point, he had the #1 bestseller, #1 theatrical film, and the #1 most watched primetime TV show
with ER, as we
with
mentioned
ER,
before.
right?
Yeah.
Because what happened was once this all came, Spielberg dropped ER, jumped on this, and then afterwards helped him develop that as a TV series.
All I have to say is that Crichton must have had a bad experience at Disney World or somewhere for him to keep coming back to this idea of a theme park in shambles.
Yeah, because like you said, it is Westworld,
Yeah,
except you're getting eaten, not shot. Have you ever read the book?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. This was one I was pushing for a while as one of our book club episodes, because I remember seeing the paperback, on the shelf and immediately grabbed it. All it takes is that Jurassic Park logo with the T-Rex skeleton.
It was iconic, that cover, and thankfully they used the same idea as the book cover.
Yeah. Probably maybe 20% of what's in the book is in this movie. And last week when we were teasing this, I said that this is really a down and dirty, you get right into it. There's not a single wasted scene. I didn't realize it's still over 2 hours. I'm thinking this was like a 90-minute in and out, but it's 2 hours and 7 minutes.
You don't feel it at all.
I did feel it this time when I was watching it, because I'm like, wait a minute, this is longer than I remember. Well, there's a lot going on. Don't get me wrong. There's a reason this is $5. And if you're a new listener, our $5 club is reserved for what we consider the cream of the crop. We grade our movies on popcorn buckets 1 through 5, 5 being the highest, and these are undisputed champs.
For me, anyway, there has to be a personal component to the 5 bucket. A 4 bucket is fantastic in our world, right?
Right.
4.5 is like the biggest you can get, and generally, unless it's phenomenal, a new movie for me, it's not possible to get a 5 bucket yet, because there has to be that personal aspect to it. And there's no problem with the personal aspect here. This is 5 buckets all the way.
Yeah, and it's not like just because it's critically acclaimed, we're going to jump on it and say, "Oh, Citizen Kane, 5 buckets." It's not how this works.
No.
We're choosing cheesy movies sometimes. Sometimes you have to shake your head and be like, what? Yeah, no, you're right. It's a personal connection. So 93, I was in between wives.
Already. Wow.
And I got married right out of college, and I'm going to recommend not doing that, kids. But I was dating this girl, and we went to the theater with her little brothers, and I saw it twice in 1 week.
So did I. I saw it at least 3 times, at least 3 times in the theater.
I saw it Fishkill Regal Cinema.
I was going to New Paltz, SUNY New Paltz at the time, and I saw it at the New Paltz Theater. I could have seen it at a better theater, and so I went back to the larger Galleria Theater for my second viewing. But it didn't take away any of the spectacle in that smaller New Paltz cinema, let me tell you.
Yeah. Do you remember a couple years ago, 2013, they re-released it in 3D? I took my whole family and we went back and we saw it in 3D in the Palisades Mall. And we took my daughter's friend, Kayla, who had never seen it before, and walked out of the theater going, "That is the best movie I've ever seen in my life." I'm like, all right, job done. This is also the kid who didn't want to watch Back to the Future, though, because she doesn't like black and white movies. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. But she was duly impressed. So it holds up even for a whole new generation.
Yeah, well, this is the second time this viewing for this show. Second time my son's watched it. He's 13 now. He had no qualms about seeing it again, as usually he does if I want to watch something with him a second time. And I had one eye on him the whole time during the jump scares, and he jumped, every time, even though he's seen it before. So
I've seen this probably right behind Star Wars and Back to the Future. I've seen this. I'm reciting the lines, and yet here's my wife jumping at scenes. I'm like, you knew it was coming. She goes,
Yeah.
it still scared me. And I'm like, all right.
Especially the one big one I can think of is when Lexi is falling through the ceiling, falling through the grate, and the raptor jumps up at her and snaps at the camera. That was that's one of the most memorable scenes from my original viewing, actually.
Yeah, and that's the scene I mentioned in The Fall Guy, where that's a stunt double. If you look at her, she's pretty well built for a little 13-year-old kid. And they had to rotoscope the actress's face onto the stunt person because she looks back up at camera. And that might have been, it's pretty flawless. You know, watching it, you don't really pay attention to it. But when you start watching these movies enough times, you start breaking it down. And I'll tell you, the whole T-Rex paddock scene, I still hold my breath. It is absolutely flawless.
As much as everybody talks about the raptors in this movie and how they're the main threat, that's the big scene at the end, is the kids being stalked by the raptors. The T-Rex, for me, is far and away the biggest star.
Well, the T-Rex is the main protagonist until you realize that the raptors have escaped. And that's toward the end of the movie. You really don't see them until.
But now, you know, I could be throwing away my dinosaur cred right now.
Okay.
But obviously, the T-Rex is the movie star of the dinosaur world, right? Yeah. So he's always what I was coming to see. But so much has been made about the raptors in the movie. As I'm watching it, I'm thinking, I don't remember velociraptors from my dinosaur books or my little figures. And looking at it a little bit more, velociraptors were real, discovered in 1923, but you were saying, you know, talking about historical inaccuracies.
Yes.
These are actually turkey-sized dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And it was another dinosaur that their name that actually fit the description of what you see in this movie as a velociraptor, but Crichton didn't think the name of that other dinosaur was catchy or zingy enough.
Right.
So he kind of did a little switch.
Yeah, he did some creative editing, which is fine. I think. But
am I wrong about that? In the 70s,
no, you're absolutely correct.
As a fellow dinosaur fan, as a kid, did you ever know what a velociraptor was?
Oh, you mean leading into this movie? Not really. No, they weren't the big stars. They weren't the Stegosaurus. They weren't the Brontosauruses or the Apatosaurus as we know them, or the T-Rex. They probably were so small, they couldn't even make a toy out of them. I don't know. This movie changed it, obviously, but they were, in reality, they were much smaller. They were more chicken-sized, turkey-sized, and even the kid in the beginning, he looks like a turkey to me. Now, we have in past episodes talked about the Jurassic World series. I think we've actually covered all three of them.
Yes, we have.
Okay. So do you know the retrofitting of that kid? So when we're first introduced to Alan and Ellie, when they're on the dig in the Badlands, Alan starts going on about, you know, how they hunt in packs and that they're, you know, and the little dumpy kid is just like, it looks like a little scary turkey to me. It looks like a 6-foot turkey.
Who was that kid, by the way? Was this like a tourist group walking through or something?
Correct. Because why you have a kid on a dig and all of the people who are there are scoffing at his notion that birds are descendants of dinosaurs. Like they're laughing at him. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why are you working for this guy? But that kid, so Chris Pratt's character in the Jurassic World, people speculate that is him as a little kid, and that's why he's obsessed with raptors. And I love that retrofitting. I
think in reality, in the Jurassic Park universe, that kid is probably in a mental institution because he was scarred for life by Grant.
So I made a note that one of the biggest missed opportunities of the Jurassic World series is not bringing Timmy and Lexi back into this world, especially because you have a kid who's obsessed with dinosaurs and you have a computer expert. So who better to take over for their grandfather's legacy firsthand? But after watching this and watching what Timmy goes through, I'm sure he probably suffers from PTSD and went home and burned all of his dinosaur
I know.
books.
The kid can't even walk, by the end of it.
I will tell you, the kid I was with when I saw this in the theater back in '93, laughed his ass off when they're at the perimeter fence and Timmy gets zapped and
Everybody
thrown.
did. My
Oh.
entire theater was uproarious. I think it was like a needed moment of comic relief.
Yeah. At the expense of this kid getting fried.
Yeah, but you knew he wasn't going to be.
I don't know. How
killed.
do I know anything?
It's Spielberg. Come on.
Anyways.
The worst is he's going to have, like a blackened face and his hair's going to be sticking up. And that's exactly what happened to him.
That is exactly what happened to him. So,
but if I'm not mistaken, there's a cameo with these two actors at the beginning of the sequel. Is there not?
The sequel?
Lost World. Yeah. Like they're, it's a throwaway scene where they're at home.
I do remember like Laura Dern having a cameo.
They're here. They're part of the cast of Lost World. Yeah.
All right. Then I need to rewatch that. I just remember Julianne Moore and Jeff Goldblum. Right.
And Jeff Goldblum is such a rascal. I don't know if there's a better word.
I brought a lawyer. You brought a rock star.
But, we're not talking about the Lost Worlds today. But his character, I think, is markedly different in the Lost World, which he needs to be because, he's got to step up.
Yeah, he's not the comic relief.
But he's not as good as he is in the original Jurassic Park. That's the Malcolm that I want.
Rewatching this and watching that scene where he's really hitting on Ellie, and then to find out that they dated for like 2 years after this, and I'm like, wow, that chemistry's there. Listen, I can work with people. I don't have to have romantic relationships with them every time I go to a new job. What's going on with these people? Every episode we're talking about these people having affairs on set. Looking at you, Arnold. So this opening scene is brilliant. Nighttime shot. You've got the trees. You've got it's just enough that you're going to see a dinosaur movie. So that's exactly what you're expecting to come through. And it's not. It's just a big old truck with a cage.
Reminiscent of Jaws. You never see the threat. It's just implied. A lot of noise, a lot of thrashing, but you never see the thing.
Yeah.
So it makes the threat bigger.
You know what you do see, though, and I tried to pause it, but I couldn't, is the cameraman sticking his hand up at the last second to stop the guy from falling on him as he gets knocked off the cage. Yeah, but you're right. It is very much a Jaws related where it's that opening shot of the girl in the water. You never see the shark. And this guy's just getting thrashed about.
Until this viewing, I never really paid attention to some of the ancillary character names like Outback Jack here.
Outback Jack,
whose name is actually Muldoon, right? So I caught that, maybe because I watch movies with subtitles on now. So
there you go.
It's easier to remember character names.
He's just well known for his clever girl.
Yeah.
How many lines of this movie do you just repeat to yourself throughout the day? Because I really do.
And how many lines of this movie are repeated in other movies?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is Isla Nublar, which is an island about 120 miles off the coast of Costa Rica. And that's where Jurassic Park is.
Mm-hmm. It looks suspiciously like Hawaii for a reason.
Yeah. Hey, it works. It's an island in the Pacific. I'm actually amazed how much of this was shot on sound stages when I really started digging into this. Because there's obviously the car scenes and the Triceratops and all that stuff are filmed on location out in Kauai, and you can go visit these sites. By the way, there is a ranch out there that I tried to visit when we were in Hawaii, which is in Kauai. You can go and do like a day tour on an ATV or on horses, and they filmed other movies there as well. Kong Skull Island and a bunch of stuff. Yeah, Kauai. They chose Kauai because you know why?
Why?
Because they actually were looking at Costa Rica, and Spielberg said, well, if I'm going to be on location for 6 weeks, a nice cushy Hawaiian hotel at the end of the day sounds pretty good. So he chose Hawaii, and it almost was the end of them.
Well, yeah, they weren't accounting for a massive hurricane to come through. Which
although it does show up in the script right on cue.
I'm wondering because they're right at the beginning. When Newman is making his escape,
Dennis Nedry,
with the Barbasol can, you're seeing shots of the dock being buffeted by waves, and I'm wondering to myself, did somebody go out during the hurricane and actually film that footage?
I thought the same thing. If you watch that, like there's a little video thing going across the bottom, implying that he's watching a video, not actually communicating with a guy on the other side of the island. And if you have a boat that gets you on and off the island, why do you have to go through the middle of the park to get there? Like there's a lot of there's weird things that are going on here that I noticed for the first time, which is it's a park that you can only get to via boat, and there's no hotels. You go and somehow the cars turn around and come back on the same track. How
Yeah, well,
those cars
there's
get turned
probably a
around?
big cul-de-sac that
Wouldn't you-
goes around and comes back, right?
Jurassic parking lot? Is that
Yeah,
where
then
it
you're
is?
going past all the same things that you already saw. So
Yeah,
you're
but
correct.
now
It
you
should
can't
really
have
go
other
in a-
tours. But now you can't have other tours going in. The whole point of every Disney ride is that it's cyclical.
Well, they're still
You're
working
going
out the
a
bugs. They're
big
still working out the bugs.
no,
So
design is number one.
Hammond needs to be
Hammond
told
dropped
all
the
this
ball on
stuff.
this one. It didn't make any sense.
Just getting into the weeds here a little bit, because I'm thinking, do these people have to always leave to go sleep? You know, is that
Right.
why they're leaving?
Yeah. Did you not have weather forecasts to know that this storm was coming? Everyone leave 5 minutes. Drop what you're doing. Drop what I'm doing. I got a baby dinosaur in my hands. I'm not dropping this thing.
And I always assumed when Nedry tries to make his escape and make it to the dock with the Barbasol can,
Yeah.
that when he, slides off the road and knocks over the road sign, and he's like, and he spins it like he doesn't know which way to go to get to
I
the
know,
dock.
like you've never left the island.
Then he goes into the park because he's going the wrong way, and he's already opened all the gates because he shut everything down. So I'm thinking that he didn't need to go through the park to get to the dock, but he did because he was just an idiot and was turned around.
Does he have like a car service that picks him up every day and he just sits in the back and doesn't pay attention?
And doesn't pay attention? Well, he's
attention.
probably eating his Twinkie or whatever he's doing.
Oh no, he had a Slim Jim and some Jolt going on there. Dude, OSHA needs to get all over this guy because that workstation was horrendous.
One thing in defense of Nedry's workstation, he has got that little animation coming up when somebody tries to get into his computer.
with
and
him dressed as Elvis.
Since the day that I've seen that, I have wanted that so bad on my computer.
I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure someone listening right now can probably send it to you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this Nedry scene a little bit, because again, you don't need much information to realize what this guy's motivation is, because we're introduced to him. We don't even know who he is. Sitting out on Costa Rica, and he meets up with Dodgson, who I've always thought was Dobson. And it wasn't until that Jurassic World movie where this character comes back that I realized it's Dodgson. He's like, Dodgson over here. See, nobody cares. So he's paid $750,000 to basically steal the DNA samples of these dinosaurs. So this guy is a direct competitor to InGen. And you get the impression that Dodgson is really just kind of like a go-between guy, but in the subsequent sequels, he's like the mastermind. He's like the Hammond of that company.
Then why would he be the one to do the handoff? Why send the mastermind, right?
Right. Yeah.
That everybody could recognize.
No. But that's retrofitting that character again into those subsequent sequels.
So he says that Barbasol can has 36 hours of life. They worked that back into the Jurassic World movies, correct? The Barbasol can?
There's a scene where he has one. I would think that they had made multiple prototypes, because there is a scene in that movie where he has one on his desk. But at the end of this movie, not only is Nedry killed, but the thing is buried in mud. Did they ever find Nedry's body? Did they ever find this can? Because they're really kind of like, oh, well, Nedry's gone. You're on an island. How is he getting off?
Lost World kind of glosses over all this stuff, but I was convinced, because they make pains of showing you the can leaving Nedry's person and then being buried in the mud. I'm like, that's the sequel right there. That can is the sequel.
No, we just have a secret island. We had a secret island. We had Site B.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes sense. I don't know. Hammond is not really very smart for somebody who, has put this all together. I don't think he's thought it through a lot.
So the crux of this is that Hammond, even though he has spared no expense,
we're told that numerous times,
he still needs to satisfy his lawyers. He still needs the okay of certain experts that have been invited to the island. And this is where we get Grant and Ellie, who are the dinosaur experts. And then you've got Malcolm, who is the chaos theory expert,
Chaos
and a
theory.
mathematician. So
Yeah.
these different brains coming to the island to give their opinions. Because the lawyer, of course, is worried about liability. And the lawyer, who is played by Martin Ferrero,
Yes.
I was convinced always that this was the guy from the Been Caught Stealing video by Jane's Addiction, who dresses up in drag
Not
and puts things in his,
in his
fake
pants?
pregnant belly
Yeah.
as he's
Oh, yeah.
stealing. It's not the same guy. I looked it up for this show. I'm like, I could be a genius, and
You've tied it all together.
it's not the same guy.
No.
But just to give
Is
some
that a
credit,
Velociraptor out there in your shorts?
just to give some credit where it's due, this lawyer, played by Martin Ferrero, gives all the exposition that you need to know, like in the Jeep. He's telling Hammond this, who will know this already. He does not need to be told this, but the audience does.
Yeah.
I am your lawyer. I am here to make sure that this
Yes.
place is safe
Yes.
and can open.
Crichton was originally hired to write the screenplay, and he didn't want to do it. He's like, I just spent 3 years writing this. I'm sick of dinosaurs. I'm sick of these characters. I don't want to do it. And then they throw $500,000 at him, and he's like, I'll do it. So he did a first round screenplay where he kind of parsed it down, but they ended up bringing in David Cope. It went through a couple different hands. But again, like I said, the book itself is much more. Crichton tends, if you read any of his stuff, he tends to get bogged down in a lot of the tech jargon and the science of it all, which just doesn't need to be explained. So when we're introduced to the lawyer, Gennaro, he's in the Dominican Republic and he's going to an amber mine. And that's all you need to see is these guys dig out that piece of amber with the little mosquito in it. And he's like, oh, Hammond wants to bring in Alan Grant. And he goes, oh, you'll never get Grant. He's a digger like me. And then you zoom in on that mosquito. And so you're laying the groundwork in very little exposition in that regard. Because when they get to when he puts them on the tour, Mr. DNA tells you everything you need to know in a 3-minute cartoon. It literally is like going to Epcot.
Yeah, because you're in the ride with
and
Grant
he's
and
brilliant.
Malcolm and
It tells you, we just
we took
fill
a
him
frog.
in with frog DNA and magic dinosaurs, and that's
I was
all you
convinced.
need to know as a kid.
Speaking of Mr. DNA, not only did I think that
Did you?
Gennaro was the guy from Been Caught Stealing, but I thought Mr. DNA was voiced by Jimmy Dean, the Sausage King. But no, it's not him.
No, did you read about this guy?
Greg Burson?
Greg Burson, a little bit. So he not only inherited, so he's a voiceover actor, and apparently a very well-known one, because he not only inherited the role of Yogi Bear from Dawes Butler, but Mr. Magoo from Jim Backus and Bugs Bunny from Mel Blanc.
They spared no
expense. But there was a weird tale where he, I guess, lost his mind and ended up committing suicide in 2008. Yeah, no, the backstory on that guy was a little like oof. But yeah, this video.
Oh my gosh, was it like Split, where he's like becoming all of his characters?
That would be. Yeah, what's up, Doc? I'm gonna shoot you. I don't know. All right, we're jumping all over the place here, and I apologize. We're introduced to each one of these characters separately. When we're introduced to Ian, he's on the helicopter with Ellie, with Alan, with Hammond, and with the lawyer, and they're flying to the island. And this is the first time you really hear Williams, like the actual Jurassic Park score, where they're flying in over the coast of Kauai. And it's a very iconic coast. If you've ever been to Hawaii, and Kauai especially has like these raked mountains on the one coast. And it's just, the score is just, it's so simple and yet it's so elegant. And it just like, it really kind of paints like this magical.
It's really stirring and it's instantly memorable. Now, I cannot say this about 95% of the scores for movies today. They're serviceable. But they're generic.
This is the brilliance of the maestro.
Yeah,
probably top 10 scores that you can hum in your head. 9.5 of them are Williams.
because of my experience going to, as a theme park enthusiast, I can't hear this score and not think that I'm walking through Universal Studios, the Jurassic Park area, because that score is like dun, 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 as you're walking through that little area.
Yeah. This is a very subtle little thing here too, and I guess I never picked up on it. But when they're in a helicopter and before they land, they hit turbulence, and Alan can't get his seatbelts.
Yes, yeah, he's got two of the same seatbelts, so he can't clip it.
Two female. It's a subtle little hey. Later on, two females are going to get together and create one dinosaur.
But then Ellie's sitting right next to him. How is she buckled in?
He was. I will say right now, after watching this for the umpteenth time, Sam Neill is the character that sells everything that happens in this movie. He is when they first come across the Brachiosaurus or the Apatosaur, whatever you want to refer to it, the level of awe that now don't forget, these guys were looking at nothing. None of this stuff was created. I mean, yeah, when you get into the Velociraptors and even later with the T-Rex, but again, those were all on sound stages in LA. When they're in Kauai, he's looking at nothing. He's probably looking at some guy holding a tennis ball. And yet he sells this. His look of awe and wonder is just, and immediately he realizes the ramifications that, my life's work is digging up these things that have not been here for millions of years. And these a-holes brought them back. We have actually discovered DNA samples based on the theory of this movie of finding mosquitoes and digging out blood samples. Crazy.
I know scientists are probably watching this. Hey, that could work. Let's find a mosquito. I'm saying,
right? Yeah, let's But it's one thing when you're cloning a sheep, and even Ian's speech later, where he was just like, no, we're not cloning condors because we deforested and almost killed them off. You're bringing back a species that hasn't been here for 65 million years. It doesn't know where it is, where it's being thrust into. I do have this question: how did they clone the plants? But it doesn't matter. You're along for the ride.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
So all our characters are gathered now on Jurassic Park, and it occurred to me as I'm watching them come in on helicopter, I'm like, is that a cheat? Is that a CGI shot of some of these shots of this helicopter?
No, that's all physical. That's a real helicopter, and they were only allowed to build that platform with the explicit directions that they had to remove it. They couldn't move a single stone. So they put that in there, and then as soon as that scene was over, they had to remove it.
That was a fantastic location, that waterfall, and I remember hoping that maybe that would come back in an action sequence, that that would be there a little bit later on, but that didn't happen. But no, I'm thinking, I knew that there was a real helicopter that came down and landed, but in some of those shots, especially when it goes past camera, I'm like, maybe a few of these are CG that I'd never realized.
The way they use CG in this movie was unlike any way that they'd used it up to this point. This wasn't like, oh, we'll just fix it in post and create a helicopter. Everything was, like you said, Spielberg had every intention, because every dinosaur movie you'd ever seen as a kid was stop motion. So that's how they were going to create these dinosaurs. And that's where you bring in ILM and Phil Tippett. Well, Tippett at the time was not. So he did work with ILM back in Star Wars and all this other stuff. Phil Tippett is a very famous stop motion animator. He did the little chess pieces in Star Wars where R2 was battling out with Chewie. And Phil Tippett was brought in, and this is what they were going to do. These were how these dinosaurs were going to get made. They were going to be claymation, basically.
Yeah. And I saw some of the test footage, and it was obviously claymation. So I would have been interested to see how that would have played out in juxtaposition with the live action animatronics,
right?
And that footage.
Yeah. And don't forget, right before this, well, not right before, like 10 years prior, he had created the Go Motion when they were filming Dragon Slayer, which really kind of created the blur and got rid of a lot of the herky jerkiness of the standard,
which was fantastic, by the way.
Right. There's a mix. So Stan Winston's company was brought in to basically create the life-size T-Rex and the Velociraptors. But they also brought in these two guys, as Michael Lantieri, who was a physical effects supervisor, and Robert Gurr and Craig Barr, who were animatronic wizards and had actually created King Kong the Ride for Universal. When Spielberg saw that, he was like, all right, I want a full-size T-Rex. All this stuff is going on. These guys are working on this stuff a year before the script was even written, just trying to do, tests and trying to figure out how this was going to work. And they were very unhappy with the stop motion. ILM was tasked with coming up with the Gallimimus herd scene, and the only way they figured they could do it was in the computer, which again was pretty new. So they worked on these sequences where they were just skeletons running around, and they could program them to be a little more willy-nilly, weaving in and out of each other. And that was so successful, they're like, we could probably do this with the T-Rex. So they, in secret, created this little CG sequence of the T-Rex, fully rendered, and just dropped it on everybody in one of their daily sit downs. And Phil Tippett famously looks at Spielberg and says, well, I guess I'm extinct. And that's where that line comes from Malcolm. Spielberg's like, that's brilliant, I'm using it in a movie. So yeah, Phil Tippett's like, well, I guess I'm out of a job. And they're like, no. They kept him on as dinosaur experts because they would do these pantomime classes with the animators. So he stayed on as a dino expert. So yeah, it's amazing that you have practical dinosaurs. You've got guys in suits. A lot of like the scene where Muldoon gets taken out by the Velociraptor. That's a guy in a suit. But when you watch this, you got CG, you've got the live action, you've got puppets, you've got guys in suits, and it's flawless. You watch it enough times and all right, that's the guy with, the raptor feet. He's wearing them like Godzilla. You pan the camera up another foot and he's,
There's nothing there. That's the beauty of watching this over and over again, is because you can really appreciate the artistry that goes into it. But when you saw this first time, 1993, it was just an amazing experience because, as you said, in a darkened theater, especially during that T-Rex scene, because it's raining, the footage is dark, so it kind of masks some of the, some of the tells that you can now see a little bit more clearly on Blu-ray and all this high def stuff. But back then in the theater, you couldn't tell between puppetry or animatronic or computer. You were just
and
awestruck.
Even then, there was a couple scenes in the kitchen sequence where the kids are getting chased by the velociraptors where I actually had to say, I wonder if that's a CG scene or if that's the puppet. So it is flawless. I mean, it is fluid. You buy into the reality that they're showing, and it's spectacular. And like you said, in a crowded theater, and it's a shared experience for the very first time. You're in awe. You're in absolute awe of this.
So Ian has that great line, nature finds a way. Once they're told that all the dinosaurs are female, we engineered them to not reproduce.
How do you know that? Did you look up their skirts? Right? Like there's so many throwaway lines, but again, it informs you that something else is coming. When they stop and get off the ride and they go into the lab, and this we're introduced to B.D. Wong's character, Dr. Wu, who they did a huge disservice to in the prequel or in the sequels. I didn't like where they went with that character. But the dinosaur is hatching, and Hammond is like, oh, I always like to be here. They imprint on the first person they see. And you see Sam Neill, like he's looking at this thing and all, but he's pointing at himself like me. I want to let it imprint on me. Like he's like a child.
Then you have the subplot of Ellie wanting him to connect to the kids because they're having this discussion. Apparently Ellie wants kids and he doesn't. And so he's like the foster father of these two by the end of the movie. So her plan worked.
There you go. Just to get Alan
on board
with the idea of kids. During that whole scene where they're sitting at the table, Alejandro's prepared us a delightful Chilean sea bass lunch. There's videos going behind them of future attractions. And one of them is a Jungle River cruise, and the other one is the Pteranodon Aviary. And both of those appear in this book. But because when they escape the T-Rex in the book, they go down the river raft, and that takes them through the aviary. It takes them. So there's a lot more dinosaurs going on. That got picked up. Jurassic Park 3 is where you really saw the pteranodons. There's elements of the books that didn't make it into this movie. I read somewhere that there's speculation that a 3-day pass was going to cost you $550. First of all, where did that come from? But second of all, like, again, there's no hotel there. 3 days. What are you going to do for 3 days? I'd pay for 3 days in Jurassic World, because that looked like a cool park to me. But here, I don't know. And so think about this as well. So you're in the car. This whole ride is you're in the car. Why do they not have paddocks on both sides of the car? So now everyone's jammed onto one side trying to look out the window?
Yeah, well, it's like a whale watching excursion, right? So like you see the whole boat,
safaris,
the whole boat tip over, and then suddenly the whale comes
well,
up
you
on
can't
the other side of the boat.
Well, then at least the T-Rex can't get on the other side. And it
yeah, because I was also thinking, like, what is there, like a sheer cliff wall on one side and then the paddock on the other? Like, what is exactly going on here?
And that is one thing that drives me nuts, which is when they first pull up to the T-Rex paddock and you see the goat, who's a sacrificial goat. It's all terrain on the backside of that rock, but when they come back and the storm hits, it's a ravine. It's like, where'd the ground come from? How'd that T-Rex get over the wall?
I always
there's nothing there.
like that they're looking at the other side of the track now, where the wall is, and that drop off.
But the goat's on the same side. They turned the cars around and came back the same way they came in.
This is true because the car's facing the opposite direction, and it is on the same. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. The initial drive-through in the daytime is filmed in Kauai. The nighttime rain scenes with the T-Rex are filmed on set. This thing was massive. When Stan Winston was finally, this thing had to be screwed to the ground because it was so massive. And the one thing I guess they kind of didn't take into consideration or didn't think enough about was that the pouring rain is going to get soaked into the latex. So this thing, Kathleen Kennedy, who was a producer, say what you will about her role in Star Wars now, but back then she was like Spielberg's right-hand man. And she said they'd be on a lunch break and all of a sudden the T-Rex would just start shivering and shaking and making noise because it was absorbing all the water and it was just taking on all this extra weight. She goes, people were like screaming, thinking it was like possessed. So yeah, there's a weird disconnect where all of a sudden there's just no ground there where the T-Rex had just come over it. But why is there also a bathroom there? If you're not supposed to be getting out of the cars, why is there a restroom?
Maybe it's for the workers. Who knows? They spare no expense.
But you got those cool Jurassic Park logos all over it. Everything had that. Well, Ian, you slapped it on a lunchbox, and well, there you go.
What better visual is there for the lawyer to be sitting on the toilet as the T-Rex snaps him up, right?
I'm only ripping this apart now after watching it 100 times and knowing that I need to talk about this.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense.
But another great aspect of this portion of the movie is, thinking to myself as I'm watching this for the first time, how cool would it be to be on this ride? And then as they're going past all these paddocks, they don't see a damn thing.
They don't see anything.
Because that's what happens usually when you go to a zoo or when you go to Disney's Animal Kingdom. If you go during the wrong time of day, you don't see any of these animals because they're in the shade, right?
Either they don't want to come out. There's a monkey on your dashboard blocking the view. Can you get your monkey butt off my face? I can't see the elephants.
And then you have Malcolm like talking to the camera. There are going to be dinosaurs on this dinosaur tour.
I hate that guy. It's like, this is just great. Yeah. Oh, so that's the scene where he's explaining the chaos theory. And Alan sees something. He sees the Jurassic Park Jeep. And you get out and you get that gorgeous introduction to a full-sized Triceratops.
Yes.
Fully realize this is a Stan Winston marvel. It's breathing, it's grunting, its eyes are dilating, it's got gooiness in its tongue, it's moving, it's fantastic.
Now, even the first time that I saw this, I was thinking that they were going to weave that sickness that the Triceratops had to the other dinosaurs.
Yeah, because you actually see the Brachiosaurus sneeze.
Yeah.
And they say, do you have a cold? So it's there, and it's more prevalent in the book itself because Ellie kind of alludes to the fact that the Western Western lilac or whatever is poisonous. And
but
that
then they
guy,
determined that the animal didn't eat it because she puts her hand up to the elbow and it's
that's
it's
well
dropping.
in the book is it was they were vomiting it out, and that's why it was not in its. That's listen. Ian was right. That is a big pile of poo for a triceratops.
I think that was bigger than the triceratops, actually.
I don't know.
But that scene with the T-Rex again, when all the power goes out because Nedry is trying to make his escape.
Yeah.
The T-Rex comes out. And the fact that Williams chose to not have, I don't know if it was Spielberg's decision or Williams or what.
No, you're right.
There's no music.
There's
no music.
No. And like I said, you still find yourself holding your breath.
Yeah.
And you've seen this 100 times.
And you need it because it lends to because music, as helpful as it is, it lends to the scariness of the sequence that there's no music. It lends to the reality that they're in of the sequence, that there's no music, and the silence is dreadful because all you hear is this thing and the breathing and the screams of the kids.
Yeah.
But when that thing, breaks the wires, breaks through the electric fence and comes out.
It's a sound effects.
I think that collectively people's mouths were open in my theater, including mine.
Yeah,
I was.
You're right there with
amazed.
those characters, and to be honest with you, a lot of that is shot inside the car, so you get that claustrophobic feeling of those characters watching this unfold. When Lexi turns the light on, you're right there with Alan going, "Turn the light off, turn the light off."
And then you see the pupil dilate of the T-Rex. Amazing. Yeah.
And so this is the scene leading up to that where Timmy has the little night vision goggles and all that stuff, and the famous scene of the cup of water. Why there's just a cup of water in this? It's not a bottle of water. It's just it's a plastic glass of water that's on the dashboard, and they both had them. So are you servicing your customers with a open cup of water? But anyways, the foot tremors of the T-Rex leading into this.
Yeah,
the story behind how they came up with that.
No, please share.
Well, they couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I know the story. There's no need to tell it. Let's move on.
All right. Spielberg.
No, I don't.
Spielberg, they wanted to do this kind of tease, and you see it again later when Ian is in the back of the Jeep and you see the tremor in the footprint with the mud in the water.
Yeah.
So he got this idea while driving in his car, listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire. And he's seeing the vibrations of his rear view mirror. It's vibrating. His bass is up full blast. So he wanted that in the movie. They couldn't figure out how to do it. They finally, after numerous, some guy had to climb underneath the car and they attached a guitar wire. And by plucking it, created that little bloop in the water. So how they did it on the ground, I have no idea.
Imagine walking in Los Angeles. Somebody rolls up and you hear this boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
You think you're about to get shot and you turn around and it's Steven Spielberg.
It's Spielberg listening to September. So yeah, it's a super iconic, and again, it just informs you something's coming. Yeah, but that scene where the T-Rex comes right through the roof on those poor kids. I mean,
and you see the T-Rex point of view as they're trying to hold that plastic. The sunroof up with their feet and their hands. Oh
yeah, and he breaks it. Now don't forget, this is an animatronic. They said that this thing, they really had to be careful that these kids weren't crushed, because these kids were doing a lot of those stunts.
I know. Imagine if this thing topples over on top of them.
Well, that's what I said. That's why they had to be screwed to the ground. So it was in pieces. So you've got the full head, you've got the full armature. They actually created two halves. So if you're filming it from the left or the right, they didn't necessarily have to like it was almost like Bruce the shark, where it was only one side of the shark.
Right.
So if you look at the other side, all you're seeing is the mechanisms.
Of course, this is not the be all end all of the movie, but this is the crowning achievement for me of this movie is this T-Rex paddock scene.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's after they get chased away. They find Ian, who I guess I never picked up on this, but when they find him, he had already put a tourniquet on his leg. He had taken his own belt off and put a tourniquet.
Ellie says, he did a tourniquet. But if he was unconscious the whole time, how did he do that?
Well, I guess he was aware enough.
He was covered in the roof of the bathroom when they found him.
Maybe he covered himself to hide.
Maybe he did.
Yeah, I mean, Alan did tell him, "Stay still, don't move."
Yeah.
Ian,
So
Oh
that's
no.
that's really how they split up, right? The lawyer is with the kids, but he jets.
This
And of
piece
course,
of crap
yep.
gets
And
it. He
Lexi is like,
fails
he
on these
left us.
kids.
He left us.
I know, I'd be traumatized too. He did get his comeuppance.
He did get his
I don't
comeuppance.
think he deserved it by any means. He's a coward, but he didn't need to get eaten. And well, I guess when you got to go, you got to go.
So that's how Grant and Malcolm get separated, is they both try to distract the Tyrannosaur. Grant makes it to the kid's vehicle while Malcolm like tries to get the Tyrannosaur to chase him, and that's when he gets knocked out. Then Ellie and Outback Jack find Malcolm, with the tourniquet, and that's that great scene where the T-Rex chases them, and you've got
Got to go
that,
faster. Got to go faster.
objects in the
Yep.
mirror maybe closer
Yes.
than they appear.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got to go faster. You think they'll have that on the ride? There's so many great throwaway lines.
And they're
in
mostly
this
from
movie.
him. They're mostly
Yes.
from him.
Completely flawless. It's just, it works so well.
Once he says, do you think they'll have that on the tour? The next scene is them panning over the gift shop in the main lobby.
Yeah.
They'll definitely have that on the tour. Let me tell you that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Then Ellie and Hammond have that little scene over ice cream where Hammond's worrying about his grandkids and he's slowly changing his mind about the park. He's still trying to talk himself into it, even at this point. But
well, listen, he spared no expense. He's got to, but he tells this great story about the flea circus. Mommy, I can see the fleas. And she's like, it's still a flea circus.
Mm-hmm.
Right back to Ian's speech, which is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. And then almost immediately after that, you see Grant with the kids, right? There's that great scene where it's the car chase, but the chase is happening through a tree.
This drives me nuts because it happened to Prometheus as well. You have a giant spaceship or you have a car chasing you, climb to the other side of the tree. All you gotta do is you just stop climbing right below it. Just take a detour to the right, let the car drop. But again, that whole T-Rex attacking he's literally tearing the tires and it's just, it's flawless. And then poor Timmy, he's stuck in the tree. I puked. Okay. All right. I'll get you down. And then they get all the way down. And then she's like, and we're back in the car again. So,
this is where the term Vegisaurus came into existence.
Yeah. But this is, these little levels of levity that just kind of because again, it's like this high octane action. And then you're like, all right, yeah, let's end it on a punchline. And then, I can exhale now and move on. We haven't even talked about Sam Jackson yet.
No, we have not. What's funny is I'm sure you saw the same bonus features that I did. Sam Neill says, well, you knew that Sam Jackson was going to be killed because he's smoking. And
so he never made it to Kauai. All of his scenes were shot on soundstage in LA. And he was supposed to go. In the book, they show how he's killed, and it's actually storyboarded out. But as we alluded to before, Hurricane Nikki shows up and devastates the island, locks everything down. These guys can't even get off the island. And so he never filmed that scene. So you don't realize his demise until you find his arm. Or, well, Ellie finds his arm. Oh, Mr. Arnold. Yeah. No. Yeah, let me give you a hand. Here you go. And what's funny? We don't talk about the fact there's still Ellie locked one of those raptors in the maintenance shed.
Yes, because only 2 of them are in that finale.
Right. I'm assuming that was the one that was in the freezer that Timmy locked in somehow got out.
Unless the leader let that one that Timmy locked in the freezer out. Because I assume that was the second one at the end, was the one from the freezer that fights the T-Rex in the main lobby. And that the other one was still in the shed.
In the maintenance shed, yeah. That was
actually, at the very end of the movie, if you stick around after the credits, it's like a Will Ferrell and Austin Powers. Hello, help. I'm still in the shed. Someone let me out here.
Hold on to your butts. Actually, that T-Rex wasn't even supposed to come back. That was a last-minute ad.
So how did they beat the Raptors? If
the end sequence, the display, the skeletons drop and crush them.
That's a cheat. I wouldn't have liked that.
That was how it was going to end. And Spielberg's like, you know what? Because by then they'd already filmed all the other stuff, and he was like, this T-Rex is going to be the star of the movie, and audiences are going to be very disappointed to not see her again. So the problem is that set, that whole visitor center was already built and designed, and it was not built to accommodate the animatronic T-Rex that Stan Winston's studio had built. So he had to put it in the hands of ILM and have it completely CG. And he goes, the entire, if this doesn't work, the entire movie falls apart. And hot damn, does it work?
It does. And then, of course, they have that added bonus of the banner falling in front of it.
Which is so iconic.
Yeah.
It's, when dinosaurs ruled the earth.
But of course, the Hammond is still trying to talk his way out of it. So Ellie and Malcolm make it back to the main building, and Malcolm like can't walk, so he's like out of action for the rest of the movie. But he's still making quips, right, from whatever table that he's sitting on.
with his shirt off.
Yep, with his shirt off. There's a Funko Pop out there of him like laying down with his shirt off.
So I think somebody actually, I think like in West Germany somewhere, somebody painted him on the side of a wall in that repose with his shirt open.
But Hammond is still trying to argue his point at this juncture of the movie, saying, even on the opening day of Disneyland, Walt Disney, nothing worked.
Yeah, well, you know what? When the Pirates of the Caribbean break down, the pirates don't eat you.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I was actually on the Pirates of the Caribbean when it broke down.
And did they eat you?
No, but Davy Jones annoyed the living hell out of me. Dead men tell no tales. All right, dude, enough. So all this time, so this is all being intercut with Nedry trying to get, we already mentioned the fact that, he meets a ugly demise.
Nedry dies a long time before this.
Dilophosaurus.
Yeah.
And that's another huge cheat, because there is such a dinosaur as a Dilophosaurus, but they're probably closer in size to what the velociraptors look like here. They don't have frills and they don't spit venom goo. The venom goo,
again, so cool visually.
Yeah. So the venom came from Crichton. Crichton wanted, especially the reveal that it's inside the Jeep to get.
How did it get in that damn Jeep? How did it get past him and get in the Jeep? Because the other door wasn't open.
No, it climbed in when he wasn't looking. I don't know. There's a lot of questions, but the frills came from Stan Winston. They wanted that. They added in that frilled lizard look, which is iconic, but yeah, it doesn't exist. Although, I mean, how do we know? Half these dinosaurs that we're watching in this movie now, if you go to the American Museum of Natural History, they're all portrayed wearing feathers now. They all have plumage. Back to Alan Grant, he was based on Jack Horner, who was pretty much the first guy to say dinosaurs evolved into birds. Birds are descendants of dinosaurs, and he was ridiculed. And that's where Alan Grant really, he is this guy, because obviously that's what he's leaning into. And now it's almost it's accepted that this is yeah.
And they had him on set as a
consultant.
Yeah.
But look, like I said, at the beginning in the 70s, we would have these textbooks where dinosaurs couldn't even hold their own weight. They're dragging their tails around. Now, the same thing with the T-Rex. The one thing that's really sad, if you tear this apart, which is they think if that's the case, then more than likely these animals are making more like emu cooing sounds than vicious, that iconic roar that Gary Rydstrom created for the T-Rex, which is such a mishmash of different animal noises put together. It just wouldn't happen. He would be more like, "Woo," before he ate you. It's like, yeah, you're not scary. No wonder why you're extinct.
Yeah, as you're being chewed on. You're not
Correct.
Scary. Not at all.
He's cooing as he chows down on me. Woo.
So at the same time that Ellie is making her way through the shed to try to turn the power back on, we get the electric fence scene, which we talked about before,
which is great.
Where Joey Mazzello gets fried and thrown through the air. But I'm thinking as they're climbing through it, those kids could easily squeeze through those openings.
Well, Alan already looked. He said, it's not going to happen. So it just builds tension.
Yeah.
And because again, you're cutting back and forth to her inside the maintenance shed, and she's pressing the buttons and she's going right down, and he's building this tension with no dinosaurs. Here's the funny thing about this. 15 minutes of screen time these dinosaurs have. That's it. You've
Really?
got, yep, 9 minutes of Stan Winston's animatronics and 6 minutes of ILM CGI.
Wow.
That is it. That is 11% of the film. Less is more. So that blows my mind that is the ratio.
So eventually, Grant and the kids make their way back to the main building. So everybody's reunited. And after this is where we get because again, they leave the kids alone. Why do you leave the kids alone? You know, just
They're
bring them
back
with
in the
you.
visitor center now. That's
Yeah.
all good. And this is after we realize that they are reproducing. Alan actually finds.
Yeah.
So he's carrying around this Velociraptor claw. It's in his pocket from the very beginning of the movie. They're being chased by T-Rex. They're lost in the jungles, and he throws it away. That's your only weapon. What are you doing? How are you going to protect these kids?
Now that you say that, that would have been a great little scene if he manages to slash one of them on the snout.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He already explained to the little fat Chris Pratt kid how they're going to eviscerate you. So why wouldn't he use that to his advantage if these things came at him? No, we're going to throw it away. I don't need that anymore. Swiss Army knife.
But the kids could have used it in the kitchen. And it was another iconic scene. Because
the Jello. Are you talking about the Jello?
Well,
I did like the fact that Timmy went right for the dessert table. He's like, screw this. Alexis is over there eating vegetables.
But again,
he's just like chowing down on
this is almost as comical as when he flies off the fence, is when you see him like limping, bow-legged, trying to get to the desserts.
His hair is all disheveled. He's got blood coming out of his ear. He's all charred up. Yeah, this poor kid. No wonder why he didn't show up in the sequels. Like I said, he went home and burned every one of his dinosaur books. He's like, I want nothing to do with this ever again.
But the sequence when they're in the kitchen being stalked by the two raptors, I think that when you left the theater after the first time, the T-Rex scene and this scene stays with you.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Because again, it's so tactile. They're real. I mean, when it's at the window and it snorts and you see the nose steam on the window.
And it bumps his nose against the window. Yeah.
And when they jump up on top of the one thing that they had to really contend with, because it is a mix of practical and CG, as well as guys in suits, is the fact that you've got all these shiny surfaces. So now you either have to buff them down to take away some of that sheen. But of course, that great scene where Lex is trying to get into the cabinet and she can't get the door closed and this thing's barreling right toward her. It's a misdirect because he's looking at her reflection.
Yeah.
Which was cool. These two scenes are iconic.
And then they escape through the ceiling with Grant and Ellie. And then you get the other iconic scene with the raptor snapping at Lexi's heels. That great little scene with all that computer code being reflected on the skin.
Oh, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't happen, and yet it is so visually impressive. It is all they need to do is get this computer back up and running to defeat these things, or at least give themselves a shot.
Yeah.
So it is old world versus new world.
Yeah, and in that one sequence, they managed to impart that to you. Like, this is like ancient times meeting current times, all in this one little visual here. And then, like, as you said, once they get past that, they bring everything back online. They call the police for help, whoever they call, to come pick them up on the island. The raptors follow them into the main building again, and everybody's hanging on the skeletons that are hanging from the ceiling. They all fall down. The two raptors have them, and there's that great expression on the raptor's face, like it's about to pounce, and you see its mouth open, almost smiling. The T-Rex comes and scoops it right up.
How no one saw him coming, I have no idea.
Nobody, he snuck up. He's just like the Walking Dead zombies. They can sidle right up to you.
Yeah, there is a glitch in the CG, and you probably can see it on the Blu-ray much better. But when the T-Rex has the Velociraptor in its mouth and it lifts it up for 1 second, the Velociraptor disappears.
Really?
For one screen. It's almost like, Jessica Rabbit's dress disappearing in one scene of that movie. But we didn't even talk, like, when they're getting the computers back up and running, did you catch it on the computer? It actually says Nedryland.
Does it really?
Nedry renamed it.
And
Nedryland.
I never noticed that he had a picture of Oppenheimer on his on his computer as well.
Yeah, there's something that says something on there. But the Gallimimus, the whole scene where again they're out, and again, they're reacting to nothing. These are all the Gallimimus are in CG. They hide behind a log, and then the T-Rex comes out and eats one. And
But that also struck me. I remember that scene particularly with the Gallimimus, and they're hiding behind the log, and the log is moving as you know, with the movements of the dinosaurs.
Yep.
I really found that impressive as well.
Yeah. Not so impressive when you just see that again, just off screen. There's a guy rocking the, you know, so, but flawless. And again, this is where Grant's like, look at the way it's eating. It's just like a bird. So he's
or they're during that other scene where like, oh, they do move in herds, you know.
They're flocking.
And I love that scene.
They're flocking this way.
I love the scene at the end when they're on the helicopter and they're on their way out, and Grant sees the pelicans. And it's like that one, I was right. You know, it's like it's almost a self-satisfied look on his face.
Yeah,
like, I was
right.
Which
I think in the book you see, because again, they go into the aerial drone with the pteranodons. I think the pteranodons escape.
Oh, so they're
again so they're actually but again, there's, you know, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's mixed around in the books. Hammond is killed by not a velociraptor, but the Compsauruses. We actually see them in the beginning of the Lost World, the little tiny ones that the little girl on the beach.
On the beach,
yeah. They attack him. Dr. Wu is taken out by a raptor. The lawyer does not get eaten by a T-Rex. Believe it or not, in the epilogue, he dies of dysentery.
What?
I think that Crichton had some real issues with lawyers. I don't know. But Timmy, the biggest thing is that Timmy and Lex's roles are reversed. She's the dino nerd, and he's the annoying little brother who's a computer geek. So they kind of reverse those roles. Yeah. And like I said, a lot more dinosaurs.
And let me just point out, talking about Timmy and Ellie, Timmy particularly played by Joey Mazzello. Yes. And a lot was made when this movie came out in this area of New York, because Joseph Mazzello is a native of Hyde Park, New York. So there were many, many newspaper articles saying, you know, local kid made good, or so, you know, something to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep. And he played John Deacon in the bassist of Queen in Bohemian Rhapsody.
We talked about the Hurricane and Nikki, that I guess they were pretty much done filming, but they still had to get back to the States. And this hurricane just destroyed a lot of the trees, roadways, airports were closed down. I didn't know this story until we started doing research. They were saved by Reggie, the actor who played Indiana Jones's pilot in the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Well, I was going to say Reggie Jackson. How does he
I guess
figure into this?
Kathleen Kennedy was wandering around on the main island trying to find a way to get her crew off of Kauai, and this guy comes up to her, and he's like, "Do you recognize me?" And she's like, "No." And he goes, "There's a snake in my plane, Reggie." And I guess he is a real pilot, and he was flying personnel and supplies back and forth to Kauai from the main island. So he mounted up a flight and got the crew off.
Wow.
So I thought that was kind of neat, because Kauai is also where Raiders of the Lost Ark was filmed. And I was on Kauai in 1990. So I was only 2 years ahead of when this was filmed. And like I said, you can go there now, and there's a ranch where you can go and you can visit a lot of the sites, which probably include the waterfall and some of the other, you know, the Gallimimus fields and stuff like that.
I don't know why they cut the scene with Nedry saying, "Throw me the whip and I'll throw you the Barbasol can."
Oh, Nedry. Have you ever seen there's a meme out there where his outfits mirror exactly the characters from Goonies?
Nedry's outfits?
Yes. Yeah.
No.
The yellow rain jacket that matches up to Mikey. He's got he's got Chunk's multicolored Hawaiian shirt. And who's the other one? There's three of them. There's three outfits that he wears. No, I don't think it was Data. It had to have been Mikey then.
No.
So, but yeah, it's kind of fun. And I don't know if it was intentional, but it when you see it, you're like, wow, that's pretty spot on. So,
But this was released in June 11th of 1993, a happening almost immediately when this thing came out.
Yeah.
And again, I probably saw it opening weekend at least. Probably its first 3 weeks in the theater, I saw it about 3 times. Went back again and then again. I just was in disbelief every single time.
yeah, it is. It like you said, it was a game changer.
Yeah.
It really was. Terminator 2 had just come out the year prior. Was that 92? So that's where Dennis Muren and ILM were coming off that. And that was pretty revolutionary. So then to take that technology and be like, we can make
actually
dinosaurs.
T2 was 91, so it was a couple of
91.
years before.
Okay. Yeah, because this was filmed in 92. 2 sequels. So there's 3 in this series. Then there's 3 Jurassic Worlds. We also have Camp Cretaceous, which is an animated show on Netflix. So this thing just keeps giving.
It does. On a $63 million budget in 1993, it made back over $1 billion.
Woo! Well, like I said, Spielberg walked away with $250 million in his pocket. He's probably still getting residuals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take it on the back end.
But this movie has just grown so much in stature. Even then, during the 90s, like there's a 4-year gap in between this one and the sequel, Lost World, because that came out in 97. As good as that is, you can help but be disappointed when you compare the two. The original Jurassic to the Lost World. I don't think it holds a candle to the original.
And it is a different movie.
Although I am a fan of Jurassic Park 3. I think that is underrated. That is underrated.
A lot of crap, but I mean, the Spinosaurus. Well, I mean, William H. Macy and Tia Leone are fun.
Yeah.
You know, and they bring Grant there under false pretenses. It does play into his, comfort with children because he gets saddled trying to rescue the kid. Yeah, and the Spinosaurus, that Spinosaurus.
Of course, what blockbuster worth its salt is not going to have a McDonald's Happy Meal? I had to have all those cups. And if you remember, the McDonald's Jurassic Park meals not only had, I think, 4 plastic collector's cups. This was past the age, unfortunately, of the glass collector's cups, like that we got at Burger King for Empire Strikes Back.
I thought you were
implying
as an adult buying a Happy Meal.
No, I was very proudly at the age of 22 buying my Jurassic Park meal at McDonald's. No. But the cups didn't last over time like the glasses did, I have to say. So a bit disappointed at that, but I do remember that the fries came in like what looked like a giant dinosaur mouth. It was actually more reminiscent of the Jaws poster than it was of a dinosaur.
Wow, I don't remember that at all.
But it was very nicely themed.
In Jurassic Park, the place to go to satisfy a Tyrannosaurus-sized hunger is McDonald's, where something big is happening to your favorite extra value meal. Dino-sizing. For just a little more, get dino-sized fries and a large drink in one of 6 free Jurassic Park collector cups. Dino-sizing. What you want is what you get at McDonald's today. And now at McDonald's, dinosaurs come to life on 6 Jurassic Park collector cups. Get one free when you buy a large drink or dino-sized extra value meal. But hurry before they're extinct.
Then I do remember the toys had dino wound action, where the dinosaur toys had bites. You could actually remove the skin so you could show like a bite was taken out of them.
Yeah. The other thing too with those, they all had the JP branding, like a cow brander.
On the dinosaurs themselves?
On the dinosaur, on the toys, yeah. They all had the little JP logo.
Did you have any of those? Did you actually go out and get any of those?
No, I didn't. I did not have. I do, and going through this, I have a lot of like making of books, and I have the comics that Topps came out with, and the trading cards, and obviously the novel first print. So there was stuff like that I scarfed and picked up, but not the toys.
I wish I did. I remember them vividly, but I wish I did pick some of those things up.
Yeah. If I did, I'd probably be trying to sell them right now. It's like trying to streamline my life here.
So Jurassic Park took over as the #1 grossing movie from E.T. So from 82 to 93, E.T. was the top moneymaker. Then Jurassic Park took it over, and that held the title for 4 years until Titanic. In 19, so
97?
not even Lost World took over from it. It was Titanic that took over from Jurassic Park.
It was a pale comparison.
Yeah, because enjoyable. You did get Malcolm coming back.
Yeah, and you got different
albeit
dinosaurs. You got the Stegosaurus.
they
and you
had to
got
make him heroic. He wasn't as much of a rascally kind of character as he was
Right.
in the original.
No, because now he's a dad, and the
Yeah.
daughter's there, and there's baby T-Rexes going on, and it's a different movie, but it's still entertaining. So I don't even mind the Jurassic World movies.
Yeah, they're a different thing. It was very much a novelty, I think, seeing the original Jurassic World, seeing what it would look like if this park ever came to fruition.
We mentioned in 2013 there was a 3D release in China. It was the first time they never released this in China back in '93.
That's
no,
bizarre.
but the 3D release in 2013, but they edited it. So you don't see the goat chunk splattering on the top of the Jeep, or her reaction to that matter. You don't see Gennaro in the T-Rex's mouth. They don't show you Dr. Sadler finding Dr. Arnold's arm. And you don't see the raptor actually pouncing on Muldoon. So that's a lot of jump scares. Is like China afraid of
I was going to say,
people?
Are they that morally,
I don't
strict?
know. That just seems like a weird, I guess getting venom spit in your face is okay, but not a raptor attacking you. John Williams didn't even score this until February of '93 and recorded it a month later. So 2 months out, there was no music for this movie whatsoever.
You saying that and knowing that this is one of the most iconic themes ever, it is instantly recognizable. It's like on an Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Superman level. This is a great movie, and it's, as I said before, completely deserving of its 5-bucket status, and I would like to induct it right now into the 5-bucket club. Jurassic Park. There we go.
Well done. I don't think there's anyone out there that's going to refute this.
No.
Be like, well, yeah, no, of course it's a great movie. Did you see that Spielberg is now currently working on an original idea? His next movie is going to be a UFO movie.
Oh, really? No.
Yes. This is set for May 15th, 2026. David Cope, the co-screenwriter of this movie, is working with it. It's supposedly this is his own idea. And I'm like, he's gone on record over the years that he could never remake a Close Encounters type of movie again because he thought it was a little naive and pie in the sky. So I'm curious. Listen, you know what? With all the stuff, during COVID, and all of a sudden the government's dropping all this information about UFOs, they've been for years basically claiming these things don't exist. We don't know anything about them. It's misidentification. And now all of a sudden they dump all this and they're like, not only is this stuff out there, we don't know what it is. And we've been researching it for years. And we're going to call them UAPs now. So I don't know. Here's my theory right now. I'm going to throw this out there. All these spaceships and UFOs that we see are not from another planet. They are us from the future, come back to either deliver a message or somehow repopulate their species. Why are they abducting all these people? Why are you hearing these stories about these alien/human hybrids?
But wouldn't they
live
if that
under
were the
oceans.
case,
They're
wouldn't they
underneath
keep
the
them?
ocean.
Wouldn't they keep them?
The babies?
Rather than the abductees instead of bringing them back?
Maybe they're just taking samples. You can't, it's kind of like going back in time and taking somebody. Maybe that somebody one day sire a very famous person. So, and they do, I don't know. I'm just blowing smoke. But so I'm intrigued. That this man at 77 years old is going back to the well of a UFO movie. And I am on board.
Maybe it'll be all about the Skinwalker Ranch.
Listen, there's a lot going on out there. I don't know. So I guess we'll have to wait until 2026.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of waiting, we don't have to wait that long for our next episode. Well, that depends if I can get my computer fixed or not. But
this is true. You may be waiting a long time.
But the plan is that our next episode will be revisiting Pixar. Have you ever given Elemental another shot? Because we kind of downplayed that
I've
movie.
seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't rewatched it. I will tell you, I've rewatched Turning Red, and it's still a pretty solid movie.
Oh, Turning Red is fabulous.
Yeah. But no, I have not given Elemental another
Yeah,
shot.
we didn't really like Elemental that much, but that was the last Pixar movie that we did. But we are going to be talking Inside Out 2. Now, the original Inside Out is a movie that I think we have earmarked for a 5 bucket. We just haven't done it yet. I have a hard time even thinking about this movie without ugly crying. The original Inside Out.
Yeah, I was gonna say that first movie, boy, they really play on your emotions. And you know why? Because we've all been there. We've all been that kid. We've all, and of course now she's Riley's growing up, and she's got all new emotions.
But just like Toy Story 3, there's a real aspect. It affects me more as a parent than it does as identifying with Riley.
I agree with you. You can't help it now as an older adult.
But especially like the Bing Bong. Oh, Bing Bong.
Oh, Bing Bong. If we don't get Bing Bong in this, I'll be very upset.
Part of what makes that so sad is like it's all about leaving childhood behind.
Yes.
And
yeah.
Which is...
So do I really need to watch a 90-minute movie about a sullen teenager? I lived those years. I have 2 of them. They're both in their 20s now, and some of those were not fun.
But apparently, just looking at some of the advertising, the emotional palette of Riley has been widening because we have more emotions introduced in this movie.
Yeah.
So
indifference is indifference.
So I'm bringing the hankies along to this one. I'm just...
Oh, am I going to have to cry? I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
Oh, probably.
And as a backup feature to Inside Out 2, I went high concept here. I was trying to think of something where I could delve into the brain, because that's what really Inside Out was all about, was looking in Riley's brain literally and seeing these emotions controlling her from the inside.
So you're saying this choice was a no-brainer?
It was a no-brainer.
Yes, that is my headline for next week's
episode. And rather than just one brain, we have two in the second feature. The Man with Two Brains.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I've probably seen this once in my life.
Well, here's the thing: is when this came out, I was 12, and this is an R-rated movie, so I never got the chance to see it.
I did laugh when I realized we're basically pairing up a G-rated movie with an R-rated movie.
Yeah,
but maybe arguably Steve Martin at his best.
Like I would say, the late 70s into the early 80s is Martin at his peak.
And did I read it that it's directed by Carl Reiner?
I believe you're right.
That is pretty wild. Kathleen Turner as well.
Mm-hmm. So next week, Inside Out 2 and The Man with Two Brains. I always say next week, but now that we're bi-weekly, I should say next episode.
Next episode.
Yes. All right then, everybody. Thanks for listening.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much.
Bye.
And happy National Dinosaur Day. Bye.
Yeah, what's up, Doc? I'm going to shoot you.
I don't know.